I'm Tony Ruiz, contributing editor at Gold Derby, here with Lea Glob, the director of Apolonia, which has been shortlisted for Best Documentary Feature at this year's Oscars. And Lea, this film is such a long time making. You follow Apolonia over so many years, and I'm curious, as the process keeps going, what continued to fascinate you about Apolonia just as a subject?
Right. Well, many things actually, and thank you for having me here. And thank you for the congratulations on the shortlist. I mean, it's a very privileged. Many films that I really admired were not on that shortlist, so I'm very proud, but also a bit humbled about the whole thing. But I think that in terms of what was important for me to capture and to bring on to an audience with Apolonia was so much that I had never really seen the struggle of a female artist in real life. I had heard from my family where there was also painters in some generations, like some successful and some not. And I had heard a lot of myths about artists and how it is, but as a young child, I didn't have any role models that were like women, like Apolonia. And when I first met her, she was absolutely extraordinary, an extraordinary character on film. I mean, I think that many filmmakers, they know, or the audience also, that if they're in front of like a strong actress who can, in a way, I mean, Apolonia is herself, but she has this face that many of the great actresses also have, where they can really, I don't know, it's them and the lens, and it's kind of magic. And this is really how I felt with Apolonia. She was such a strong and extraordinary character. And then on top of that, she had this ambition of becoming a painter within her own lifetime, and create for herself all the circumstances necessary for her paint to survive, and for her to be able to do what she loved, to paint, and to make sure she got the time so that her works would be good. And all of the time she was so willing to take the camera with her everywhere and say, yeah, let's not hide our trading secrets. Let's just expose our whole like art industry from within, from before you go to the art school, to the art schools, out to the art market. And let's speak about these things of what is it to be a woman, and what is it to be a female artist, and what do we encounter. So I talk very much, sorry.
No, I think that's great. But one of the things that you said in there that I think is so important is the fact that we often don't see the story behind the art. We often don't see the process, and I feel like that is so important, to see the actual process. Why do you think we don't get to see that as often as maybe we should?
Well, I think there are many reasons for it. One of it is that for like reasons of history, I don't know, then the sort of the male gaze on the world has been the dominant one, and the also, how can you say, what we see in the world is kind of reflected by who holds the power. So images are still so much tied to propaganda, and the images that we see around us reflects the sort of the worldview. So there's a scene that didn't make it into the film, but that was like, I thought it was a lovely scene. It's Apolonia. She was in the Uffizi's in Florence, and she went into the museum, and she would give me a gift for my children. And so she would look, there was like this little shop where you could buy gifts, gift shop, and there would be small keychains of all the great painters. And she would turn this wheel and look at the keychains, and there would be like, all the men basically. And so she was like, oh, and then she went to the to the clerk saying, "Excuse me, I have a little problem because I would like to buy a gift and I would really like to buy a female painter. So, but you only have, you know, all the men." And it was a lovely scene of how, you know, there's no representation of the female painters throughout history. And now it's kind of exciting times because there's so much awareness on that. But for that reason, I think that's one of the reasons that before no one cared, I don't know. And the other reason is that trying to kind of make it as an artist, it's very fragile to speak about things like economy, for instance, and it's also fragile to speak about things on your gender. And I guess for many other minorities, also talk about the minorities or disabilities, because you put yourself in this vulnerable position where you basically you have to look like a success all the time, and you have to appear as the artist to be successful. And maybe in painting and in the fine arts even more, because you are your own, you're like your own, like PR agency nowadays. So you have to be super, I mean, brave like Apolonia to open the door and say like, okay, it's, you know, it's fragile. Now I live with my mother in 12 square meters.
No, well, in documenting her, you know, over the course of so many years, did you see the story unfolding in front of you? Did you see the story coming to life in front of you, or did you kind of have to discover the story in the editing room?
Yeah, no, I very much saw the story coming to life in front of me. I mean, Apollonia's paintings, her paintings were, I discovered like how wonderful a painter she was. It took me some time because when we started, I was very young and I was looking for a young artist, but her paintings developed so much. And then one day I was just looking at these magnificent works of art, and she told me that it takes them 1 year to really dry. So she would work on multiple things, and then for the furnace to really dry, it took 1 year. And I thought, okay, so no wonder that this is a film that has to be recorded over the course of time, because this is sort of the DNA within the film and within the works of art. So if we have to see the art change and Apollonia go through the structures of society, of the, like, not society, but the art world, kind of, you know, the institutions that are there, it will take time. So that, I mean, that I saw through the lens. But then, of course, there were many other things that happened during these 13 years that I did not anticipate, but that happened during this filming. And I think maybe in the editing, it was very much also to carve out the relationship between me, the documentary filmmaker, and Apollonia, the painter. Yeah.
And I wanted to ask you about that because, you know, filming somebody for that long of a time and having, you know, there's a clear relationship between you two. I'm curious, were you ever concerned about like the personal aspect of your relationship with Apollonia interfering with your vision as a director, as a filmmaker? Was there ever any conflict between the two?
Well, I think somewhere along the lines, or the time, the lines got a bit more like maybe blurry, but which was a consequence of the long time that we spent together. So the responsibility of creating a film that was ethically true to Apollonia was a bit bigger than if you had just been filming for like 6 months or something, because it really represented a stretch of her biography. But we were not friends when we started to film. I was a young filmmaker looking for a person to be in this film that I had to do in film school. Actually, it was supposed to take a couple of weeks. But then I just found like the cinema love of my life. And of course, I had to move away from only being fascinated, but also like maturing a bit and making a film that was not only about a fascination, even though I think it's important to have this sort of fairy tale and fascination, because meeting another person is really like and yeah, it's sort of an adventure, and this movement was important. But sure, it's very difficult to, because of course I became very close to Apollonia, and sometimes we were asked like, how is it? And it's trying to describe it. It's not really a relationship it's not friendship and it's not family. It's closer to family, but it's not exactly. So it's it's a very special relationship, I would say.
There's a scene that I found just absolutely completely haunting, and it's the scene on the beach where she's just received criticism, and the critic basically tells her, she says, "What can I do to fix it?" The critic says, be be good, be the best, something along those lines. And it's shot so hauntingly. And I'm curious, do those types of moments, are they organic? I mean, how did you decide to film that particular exchange at that beach? I just found it so poetic.
Yeah, thank you so much. No, I really think that was also one of those moments of cinema that were like, I don't know, very true. So that was very organic because it had just happened. And we were, I mean, everything happened very fast. So I think I had been together with Apollonia uh, for weeks maybe or something. And then she met this art critic. And and I was not there. It was like, just one of those moments where I was not there, and I was like, oh, and she was like, Lea, I have to talk to you. Something happened. And then I was like, okay, but we will go to the beach and then we'll find a spot where we can talk. And I brought the camera and we kind of set up a picture. And then I just asked like, so what happened? Um, so yeah, so it was like that. But I agree that it's one of those moments where, I don't know, even the birds are kind of listening in, it seems, and the waves in the background and Apollonia's presence. Yeah, so I cherish that moment also. But it was also a hard moment because it was also the moment where I had actually promised that I should deliver a finished film. And it was the moment where I realized that this film cannot finish here. Um, yeah.
Well, and that's so interesting to me is that you film this over such a long period of time. You get involved with other films. You're working with other filmmakers. Did you find over the course of filming this movie that you as a filmmaker changed the way that you approached your work?
Yeah, yes, I think you can see that. Um, I think more I changed as a person, and you can feel that in the works. And since this work is shot over such a long time, I think that you can feel that in the images and in the camera, and you see this development as a woman also. Get like family and gets sick and get better, and so it's like, I think that, yeah, the person changes and the body changes, and that will of course be visible when you have a film over such a long period of time. But I don't know if my approach to filming Apollonia changed that much. I become more mature and I got more like conscious, but at the same time, it was very important to stay very true to the energy that was in the film at the time it was shot. So yeah.
I'm curious, you mentioned about, the idea of sickness and the things that happened over the course of this. And of course, what happened to you with the birth of your son. who in the film is absolutely adorable, by the way. He reminds me very much of my youngest son. That's why it struck me so much. But you know, your struggles, how sick you got. At what point did you decide that that story needed to be a part of the film? Because I don't know a lot of filmmakers that would be willing to do that.
No, well, I think that I'm not a stranger to the personal films. I have done films before where I have been like represented in some way in the film, not like this, but in like other ways. And then I just think that, I mean, it was like very extremely hard. And when at moments I was not sure that I would, you know, be able to do anything again, or I mean, very little get back to even making the film. And I mean, it changed so much, and so I think I was always, of course, influenced and interested in the female artist and the female body. But after meeting Apolonia and Oksana Shachko, which both have their body was very present in their work, and sadly after Oksana died, I also felt that, I mean, yeah, this body is, I mean, so different how we feel in our body and about our bodies, and sometimes maybe the body can also be a prison. And yeah, and so it felt very important that the film had to somehow deal with the destiny of the female artist in a way, to make it a bit not just about one artist, but by adding the stories of the female artists that were involved, including myself, to make it more of a like a story of like of all of us. And I was a little nervous at first to show the cut to Apollonia, because it's like, okay, so I followed you for 13 years and it's a film about me. You know, it's not, that was not, but luckily she's very, these issues are very important for Apollonia. And she immediately saw that by adding my own story, which we speak together, we speak about so many more things. And also the taboos, because it's like, yeah, so many things are taboo. For instance, I'm in the film world, and we have to be so strong and, you know, articulated and do everything. But I mean, sickness can also happen to us. You never know what life has in hand. And I mean, I encountered this as kind of a taboo of being like, I was very ashamed of losing my strength at some points. And so, and that it creates stigma. If you don't speak about the things as they are, you're kind of repeating the lie in a way. So it was also important to share, like, a bit more honest.
So with the reception that this film has gotten, and you know, the experience of, you know, being in this conversation of awards, and particularly the Oscars, what has that, how has this journey been for you? How has this experience been for you so far?
Yeah, well, it's I think that I mean, I'm very honored of the recognition from the peers, or how can you say, like from the film industry. It feels very how can you say, it's a bit overwhelming, because it could have been nothing, this film. It was so easily that it could have been yeah, nothing, like a box in the attic that maybe my son one day would open and either throw away, or he would look at the material, like it happens in history so often, right? So I'm very happy that I get to share the story with so many people. And of course, it's also, some things are also like sad. It's sad that Oksana is not here to share it down on earth, but I really feel she's there anyway. And it's also a joy to be able to share her work. She was such a strong artist, Oksana Shatsko, and it was, I mean, my life changed from meeting her and from meeting Apolonia. Yeah, so I'm happy. I mean, now we have been traveling with the film for a year, and I'm a filmmaker, so I should actually be making films. But I'm happy that we get to talk to different people about what it is to be a female artist. And there are still many problems, and many like glass ceilings that are never broken. And yeah, so I feel good about that.
Well, I, for one, can't wait to see what you do next. And congratulations and best of luck to you. Everybody go to goldderby.com, make your predictions for the upcoming award season, and stay tuned for interviews with more contenders. Lea Glob, a real pleasure to talk to you. Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.